Hello, Inspire and Illuminators. It's me, Jennifer Engel, CEO and founder of Inspire and Illuminate, coming at you today with another topic of how is highest possibility state structured. That's the book that I just finished writing, and I'm in the process of doing the final edits, and hopefully it will be ready by Black Friday. Last weekend I did an introduction to highest possibility states, and I kind of experimented with using virtual backgrounds and other technology. And when I went back and I looked at it, I wasn't 100% satisfied with it, but it's okay. We're moving forward. You know, one of the things that I think my brand is pretty raw and real, and so now I'm back to just having a conversation with you in a room in my house. So if you want to see the introduction to highest possibility states and where that came from, I'll put the link in the description below. But I also want to talk about today how it is structured and tool and habit number 1. So highest possibility states is really structured in a very simple format. It's very concrete. It's like, here's tool 1, here's habit 1, here's the goal, and here's how you do it. And it's only about like 96 or 98 pages long. It's not a very long book. I found that as people are getting older, or generally the older generation still likes to read. It's more like the younger generation. They don't really like to sit and read very long. They're kind of like, get to the point. And so that's how highest possibility states is structured. As I was writing it, I really found that a big concept came out of it. Like originally it was about the tools and the habits that I was going to be writing about. And again, just to kind of briefly go over, I'm writing this not to get followers, not to become big, not to become huge, but because, you know, for many areas of my life and for a very long period of time in my life, I was in lower possibility states, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And I know how painful all of those places can be. And even if I only have like 11 followers like I have right now, that's why I'm doing this, because even if I can help 11 people, that is awesome. And I've also realized that a lot of my followers tend to be what I like to call sneakers to the well. When I first wrote Heaven Under Construction, what kind of came out of the woodwork was, even though I might not have known about it, like I would talk to people and they would say, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about because I read da 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 da. But it's not necessarily like they like or they follow me. I found people all over that I didn't even know would listen to the words that I had to say, and that it actually ended up helping them, and even in people in different countries. And so I'm okay not knowing how many people or how far my messages will travel. My purpose is that I really hope to take highest possibility states, find the people who might be in lower possibility states, and help rise them into the higher possibility states. And I'm not going to say that all of my concepts in my book are new. They're not. They're just kind of just taken like all over, put into one place, and put it in almost like a easy to swallow capsule. Now with that said, there is a little bit of a more complex thing that kind of emerged, and it didn't really hit me until the end of the book that this piece of information within the book would be so imperative to it. It would actually be a huge piece of the book, even though it's only mentioned about twice. And in fact, I'm thinking of creating like little merchandise, like physical symbols to go with this concept, which is called the matrix. Now, obviously that term within itself is not new. But what I was thinking about wasn't necessarily a matrix. What I was thinking about was how we have these different levels within our subconscious, and I was trying to get across, like, how do you know where you are within your subconscious, you know? And it kind of came across when I saw just a really simple grid system that children are going to be using in school, introduced to in elementary, used throughout junior high, probably becomes a lot more complex in high school and beyond. But it was just that like simple 4-quadrant, like, positive, negative, X, Y grid. And whenever I see anything and whenever I learn new information, my natural gift or curiosity or ability is to take that information and then apply it to human behavior and human consciousness. So one of the things that I've talked about is that there are generally like 4 body systems. That's nothing new. You have your physical body, your mental body, your emotional body. But where I'm more of not an expert per se, but kind of, because I was an only child and I was a sick child and I'd been sick pretty much almost my whole life. And so I've had lots and lots of times to just be still and to be with myself. And that's really where a lot of this came about, just being still, exploring my mind, exploring my imagination, exploring my subconscious. But how do you talk about that to people in a way that would make sense to them? That's where this matrix and this grid system came about. So the grid system, like the simple grid system that you would have seen when you were a child, that positive, negative, up, down, back, forth, is going to be, I'm going to explain the quadrants really quickly. So within the book, I talk about how quadrant 1 is really where we want to be. That's that positive, right? That's where we have this goal, and that's where it feels determined and it sounds uplifting, and that's where we really want to be most of the time. But sometimes, in order to get there, we have to go into quadrant 2. We have to back up a little bit, but back up in a positive way. And a lot of times I talked about how in quadrant 3, we are the negative, that's that really self-destructive, that loss of innocence quadrant that sounds very anxious and angry. What I found is that loss of innocence and that depression and that fear, it's just a moment. You can climb out of it. And one of the ways that I found to climb out of it was to go into quadrant 2. I'm negative, I'm back in time, but I'm going up. And then it was almost nostalgic, okay? So quadrant 2 is like going back in time to that moment where maybe you caught a whiff of a woman's perfume and it reminded you of your lover, or you walked past a bakery or a kitchen and it reminded you of your grandma's cooking. That's what I mean, that traveling back in time where some physical sensory within your environment enters your body and triggers your mind to go back in time. We were all kind of like these innocent children at one point. And so one way that I lifted myself up is I started to ask myself, like, if I wouldn't let my children watch this or listen to it or whatever, why would I let myself do that? So I kind of became the gatekeeper of my own mind, and I started traveling back in time within my mind and remembering what it was like to be like a child and to be innocent. So that's one way to pull ourselves out of quadrant 3, negative, into quadrant 2, where we're kind of returning back more to spring, to that innocence, so we can start heading back into quadrant 1, positive. But there's also quadrant 4, and sometimes I experience this, but my natural gift, my core, is really to be positive and childlike. That's who I am at my core. But I have been surrounded in the past or in the present with grumpy people. To me, that is quadrant 4. It's where you feel negative, but you're still going forward. Maybe you have like this big project at work or at home, and you're kind of like, I don't really want to do this, but you do it anyway. That's quadrant 4. So as long as you're moving forward, even if it is negative, because I think a lot of times when we think of negative, we think bad. And I really don't want people to think that. I want people to think that negative could just be taking steps back. It could be deconstructing. It could be, okay, I feel grumpy, but I'm going forward anyway. So that was something that I learned on my spiritual journey. A lot of spiritual teachers say you have to go through this dark night of the soul, and you have to sit and you have to stew in your shit. And in the end, I found that's just not true. That's how many people do it. But it's not true. You don't have to do it that way. And what's kind of interesting is this morning it was like, I have my writers group. I'm done with highest possibility states. Now what? And what came to me is my next book is going to be called Magical Mind. It kind of talks about the introduction, which is the only thing I've written so far, kind of talks about how we create these darkness, we create this shadow, but we create it. And just as easily as we create it, and this is what Magical Mind's going to be about, we can transform it. We can flip those scripts, which is also something that I talk about in highest possibility states as well. So with highest possibility states, it came from me being in my lower possibility states, getting into my higher possibility states. It is structured in a really simple, easy way, like easily digestible. It's like, here's your tool, here's your habit, here's your goal. But then I use this matrix system as like a GPS. Unless you know where you're going and you know the route and you've traveled it many times before, you need to plug in your GPS. And so that gave me this aha moment. You have to know in your mind, in your subconscious, where you are in the matrix, in the grid system. And so that's a big concept that I'm going to bring about with highest possibility states, the idea of this matrix. Where are you in the matrix? Where are you in your subconscious? So I started at the beginning of the book as kind of like, I'm here. And of course, depending on where you are, day by day, moment by moment, you could be all over the matrix, right? And even your physical body, your mental body, they could all be in different parts of the matrix. But the whole point is thinking, in general, where are you? Where are you starting? And then you plot out a point within your subconscious, within your mind of where you would like to be on the matrix so that now you have a path to get there. But in addition to that, you can't just have a path to get there. If you've ever taken a journey, it's going to throw you off course sometimes. And so what's nice about having this physical matrix system, this grid to kind of look at, is it gives you hope. It makes you think that, okay, I might be in a self-destructive place right now, but it's just a moment. And then I give you tips and tricks and tools of how to get out of that moment and get into a different quadrant or a different part of the matrix or the subconscious. So that's something that I'm going to be talking about in the book. And then I'm going to do that by using tool and habit number 1, where you're going to get a vision board. That's the tool. That's the idea, okay? And the goal is to really figure out what are your top 3 to 5 things that you say are important to you. Because a lot of times we only have so much energy, we only have so much we can give, and we really need to be clear on what are your values and who do you say that you value. And are you really focusing your energy on those things like a laser? So when you have focus, you have so much more power. Where if you are giving your energy away to anything and everything that comes along, now your power's weakened, it's spread out. So that's what tool and habit number 1 is going to teach people how to do. I hope that this has helped someone today so that you can use your own focus and power to help those around you, because more than ever, this world desperately needs it and needs you. Peace and blessings.